Hello and welcome to the AfroCentric Woman. I'm back. I went live earlier today, but I was on the road, so I do apologize that several um, parts of the live I was telling different stories. I'm sorry that it didn't show up. You couldn't hear it. That had to do with cell phone coverage, and it also had to do with people calling me. And I believe that when people were calling me, it was taking me off of the network for the streaming. So if I get enough interest in that particular topic, I will either try to, I guess, re-record it or maybe just add more context or record another video around that topic. So that topic was around men spending money on dates versus, giving you money to do whatever you want. And I kind of broke down my experience and feedback that I've heard from other women as of lately and over the years. So what I want to talk about today is talking to men. Yeah, let's talk about it because I can honestly tell you that I have come a long way with how I talk to men, and I'm getting better every day. I get better every day, every week, all the time. I'm getting better at talking to men. So let me just back up. Let me just tell you that my mother was very toxic. My mother was very rude. My mother was the type of woman who would just say whatever was on her mind. She was extremely emasculating. She was extremely blunt, and not blunt isn't the word I'm looking for. I think more the word is crass. She was belligerent with her words. And this is towards me. I mean, I've seen her do it towards other men. I've constantly seen her call men boys, N-words. I mean, this is kind of like my upbringing. Now, I never was as exaggerated as she was, but I do think I kind of had this attitude of, well, if what I'm saying is true, I should be able to just say whatever I want to say. And I can tell you that what wisdom has taught me over the years is that it's not just about what you say, even if it's true, it's about how you say it. And especially when you're dealing with men. I will say the number one currency is respect. That is the number one currency when it comes to talking and dealing with men. Another thing that you really have to understand is that the male ego is very, 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 very fragile. When I tell you it's fragile, I mean it's fragile. They sometimes don't take any type of criticism or feedback. They can take it real, like the wrong way. You know what I mean? So when you're mindful of that and you understand how fragile the male ego is, you're very careful with your words, and you're very precise in how you speak with the man that you're dealing with. And this could be anybody. And a lot of these principles, they translate to men, women, children, everybody, especially when it comes to speaking with respect. It really does translate to a lot of different people. I cannot tell you how much you win so much with sweetness and kindness with your words. I can't even explain to you how much favor having a pleasant voice and being a very positive person, it has gotten me so much. I mean, just as simple as, like, I remember one time I went to this restaurant. It was a Lebanese restaurant. And I want to say that the restaurant was fairly new, like it was less than a year old. And this was during the pandemic, but everything kind of started opening up. And I went to this restaurant, and there was this guy. I could tell he seemed managerial. And I remember just telling him, like, hey, are you the manager? And he was like, yeah, and I was like, well, this is my first time here. I'm vegetarian, and you have so many, delicious vegetarian options. I just don't even know where to choose. I'm so overwhelmed with all the beautiful food that you have here that I don't know what to do. And he was blushing. He was literally blushing. He was like, "Well, I have this new soup that's in the back. I haven't even brought it out yet. Like, I want to just give you this soup so you can try it." And he gave me free soup. And that's just one example. That kind of stuff happens to me all the time. People throw in extra stuff for me, or my server will come and check on me more than they're checking on other tables. I just talk to everybody with dignity and respect, and it doesn't matter if you are a wait staff, if you're a valet, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I talk to everybody with dignity and respect. But when it comes to that respect factor, especially if there's a man that you're dealing with and you're dating him, or you guys are courting and you're going to decide if you're going to date, or you're just connecting with him and you're trying to see how you're going, if you guys are going to be able to date, if there's going to be a romantic connection, that sweetness and that respect becomes even more important. It becomes very, very, very important, because you have to keep in mind, especially if you're dealing with kind of like higher net worth guys, guys with more demanding careers, guys who work a lot. You want to be a refuge. You want to be a place of peace. You want to be a place of joy. So by the time he talks to you, it's just like, it's just that, oh, this is so refreshing. That's the kind of the impact you want to have on a guy that you're interested in dating. Because if you are his peace, if you are his refuge from the cutthroat world, and he is, viable enough to be able to invest and to be able to grant you access to a more luxurious lifestyle, he will do it. He will do it because he values that level of peace, calm, and serenity that you bring to the table. Now, everybody definitely has to find their own feminine voice. I have found mine. I have definitely found mine, and I love developing myself in that area. The thing about dating that makes it fun and that makes it more so about the journey and less so about, oh, I got to get married. Oh, I got to get in a serious relationship. I have to blah, blah, blah. I'm a failure, unless, that desperation and that sense of urgency, is when you actually allow yourself to enjoy the process. Like, I enjoy the cat and mouse game. I do. I find pleasure enjoying it. Like, I find pleasure in that reaction that I get from men when they realize how sweet and pleasant I am and they let their guards down. When they realize how, they have this misconception about African American women. A lot of the guys that I date are not from the US, for various reasons we could talk about later. But I date a lot of guys that are not from the United States, and they have this misconception about African American women. They think this or they think that about us. And nobody wants to believe I'm from the US. They're like, but no, where are your parents from? And I'm like, the US. And they're like, oh, but like, where are you from? And I tell them I'm from the US, but oh, okay, I get it. But like, where are your parents from? None of these guys want to believe that I'm from the US, or not none of them, but many of them don't want to believe. They don't believe I'm from the US because they have these preconceived notions about African American women. And when they're just like, but you're just so sweet, or you're so this, or you're so that, I just assumed you weren't from here. And it's like, no, sir, I'm from here. You have to understand, we are, diverse, and there's a plethora of different types of African American women, and you've met my type now. So what's up? Try not to make too much of a big deal about it, but I mean, that is a feedback that I constantly get from men. Now, when it comes to talking about your preferences, okay, so let me hip you in on this when it comes to talking to men about getting a date, right? Because I have more dates than I can accommodate. So that's my issue. My issue is time. I just don't have enough time to accommodate everybody that wants to go on a date with me. But for some women, from what I'm understanding, some of you ladies are having a problem getting on a date or getting on a nice date. And what I can say is that when I make a new connection with the man, I typically will bring the conversation. I'll start with small talk, and then I'll bring the conversation pretty quickly to dating and like what it is they're hoping to experience from their dating experience. And then after we have shared that information, then I move into um, what is his ideal situation for a date, or like what is his ideal things for a date. And I like to do that at the beginning because I want to weed out those, oh, I want to take you to the park. Oh my gosh, y'all, I'll have to share the screenshot in another video. Or maybe I'll put it on my IG. I don't know. But there was this one guy who was like a long romantic drive. I was like, this brother was trying to sit up here and put a spin on driving around in his car. Like, come on. Like, maybe you did that in high school, but you're 40 something years old. You're 46 years old, brother. I'm not about to sit up here and drive around in your car. That's not a date. So, so you kind of want to get a gauge for him, because sometimes a guy, depending on his income level, he may not be able to take you out on a real proper date. So he may offer something like, oh, walk in the park, or go to Starbucks, go to get coffee. And I have a whole video on dusty dates, so refer to that. And so I will be able to weed those guys out. And the guys who are more so on my level are the guys who offer up restaurants that I already like, and that's where they like too. So it's really not it's not hassling them or pushing them to do something that they don't already normally do, because these are restaurants that they themselves frequent anyway. So, I'm able to just, it's just kind of like, it helps establish a common interest, common places that the both of you like to go, when you ask them like, well, what is your idea of a good first date? Then once you kind of get that conversation going, then you can move into the scheduling aspect of your date. And then from there, and then this is something very new that I've picked up. So I have traveled to some different countries, and I allude to, on my dating profile, I allude to one of the countries that I've been to, and I sort of have like a little bit of a cliffhanger, like, what do you think I learned in this particular country? And I do have on there that I'm well traveled. So usually one of the questions that'll come up on the dating app is like, oh, where all have you been, or what did you learn in that country? And what I tell my guy is, I say, you know what? I think it would be so sweet for us to swap travel stories on our first date. I think that would be so sweet and romantic. And usually the guy's like, oh, that's his cue. That's his cue to book the date. See, that's the thing when you're talking to men. You don't, okay, so like, let's say this. Let's say, because I've seen a lot of women do this. Let's say you want a date and the guy is dragging his feet, or he just hasn't figured out how to ask you. Sometimes women will be like, so what you think I'm just about to sit up here and waste my time talking to you when I could be trying to go on a date with somebody? Or like, oh, do you just want to waste my time? Or I don't have to, or this is one I get. I don't have time to be sitting up here going back and forth with you. Are you going to ask me out on a date or not? That is extreme. Okay, ladies, listen. That is extremely hostile and very aggressive. Before I continue on with that, let me just say this. I'm going to say that there are some men who like to be talked to crazy, and I put those men in the dominatrix category. So like, yes, there are some men who like dominatrix type women. They want to be talked to crazy. They want to be ordered around. They just want to feel dominated. But I can tell you that that's like a fetish, and most guys are not like that. There are guys out there like that. But if you haven't met him on a dominatrix, like, if you have not met him on a dominatrix website, he's probably not into that, right? So he's probably just a regular schmegler guy who just wants a regular schmegler woman. He wants to feel like a man. He wants to feel valued. He wants to feel, he wants to feel manly. And if you can make him feel more manly, you're more likely to be treated better by him, and he's more likely to spend more money on you. Straight up. If he feels manly with you, if he feels very masculine. Because if you want a masculine man, you have to leave space for him to be masculine. And if you're aggressively demanding a date, you're not like you're going to be more likely to come up with like very emasculated type of men, or very more so like feminine men. Oh, that's not the word I'm looking for. What's the word? Passive men. You're going to more so come across that guy that's not going to be that big provider, protector type of energy if you bully him into asking you on a date, or if you shame him into asking you for a date, or you guilt him into asking for a date. No man wants to feel like his back is up against the wall with anything, which is why, as women, we don't ask men to marry us. They ask us to marry them, because he wants to know for the rest of his life, I chose my wife. He wants to know for the rest of his life, this is the woman that I pursued, and this is the woman that I've gotten. And that's exactly why we don't ask men to marry us. We don't ask men out on dates. It's all in their hands. And I think that a lot of women feel uncomfortable with that giving up that power and giving up that control, that we put that over into the man's hands, because he's the one who sort of leads the way on um, pushing the relationship forward, right? We have our hand on the GPS. We both program the GPS to decide where we're going, but we have our hand on the steering wheel and we have our hand on the brakes. So we can control the pace, but they can control the speed. We just pump those brakes. If things are going too fast, women, we pump those brakes. We pump those brakes. So yeah, there's those are the sort of more subtle, gentle ways that you can get a man to ask you out on a date without being so demanding and without shaming him. Because how can I explain this? When you put a man in a position to where you're telling him what he's doing wrong, there's always a way that you could steer him into doing what you want him to do without pointing out all the things that he's doing wrong. So you can tell him, babe, I prefer this, or I prefer that. I prefer, even like, okay, for example, with these guys who have come to me, maybe, is that a good example? Guys who've come to me with a date that that I'm not going to go on. Even, okay, yeah, I'll give you an example. And these examples, I didn't end up going out with these guys, and I end up unmatching them, but it doesn't have to be this like tit for tat, like argumentative interaction. If me and a guy, we're not going to be compatible, we're not going to be able to go out. So I'll give you one example. There was this one guy who I had been talking to him for a couple of days, and then I got into my, what kind of dating relationship do you want? Where, da 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 da, what is your ideal date? And he said something like coffee. And I was like, oh, and then he said, well, what's your ideal date? And I said, well, my ideal date is something whereby I can wear a nice dress and some heels. And then the guy said something like, I'm not into that, or I'm not your guy. I think he said, well, I'm not your guy. And I was like, I just unmatched him. I'm not going to sit up here and go back and forth with the man who's telling me that he's not my guy. If you're not my guy, you're not my guy. Like, you're giving me, how many 50 plus matches? Like, I have a long list of men to vet. So you getting out of my queue is giving me an opportunity to vet these other men. I feel no ways about it, bro. So I've seen women when a man is like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want, like, oh, you want to go to 5-star restaurant? I don't want to do that. And instead of them just saying, okay, and moving on to a man who will do it, they will sit up here and, well, who do you think I am? And I'm not this, and I deserve that. And they'll just kind of go in. And I'm like, babes, listen, this is not the way to get what you want from a man. He's not going to sit up here, you cuss him out or you argue him down, and then he's going to be like, you know what? Actually, I have a change of heart. I will take you to the restaurant that you want. It doesn't work like that. And you end up expending so much feminine energy on that interaction that's just not going to work. And you could be using that energy on something else, on yourself. You could be entertaining the company of another gentleman. There's just so many other things that you could do that would not pertain to you sitting up here going back and forth with this man or going off on him. Now, one thing that I have heard women say that they dislike femininity content because they feel like some feminine women want them to be, quote, unbothered all the time, and then that's not natural and that's not normal, and sometimes it's okay to be angry. And I agree with that. I think all emotions are welcome, and I definitely do think that sometimes it makes it's perfectly natural and okay to be angry. But when it comes to communicating with a man, I think that a lot of times women are not allowed, they are not able to allow their emotions to exist while continuing to focus on their strategy. What exactly are you trying to achieve from this man? What exactly are you trying to achieve from your dating life? Or, what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? Because if the answer is find a gentleman to experience wonderful dates, well, then that helps set the stage for how you're going to communicate. Because you having these random outbursts and cussing guys out or going off on them or, shaming them, I need to kind of look through some of these things and try to figure out um, how I can let you know. Another thing is like when you're roster dating, you don't have to tell the man that. You don't have to tell the man that. Just he'll know that you guys are not exclusive. So you don't have to spell it out. So when you're trying to, like, let's say you want whatever from a man. You want him to buy you flowers and buy you let's say you want him to buy your favorite perfume. And then they sit up here and they say, well, and I don't want to do that. Or maybe they haven't answered you, or that maybe they're asking you like, wow, do you always get this type of gift on your second or third date from a man? So what you don't want to do is you don't want to sit up here and be like, men do everything for me. I'm used to this. I'm used to that. I'm spoiled. My men give me everything I want. That's what you don't want to do, because the fact that you're roster dating is enough. So when you're roster dating, the air of the fact that you're not exclusive with this man, the smell is already in the air. You see what I'm saying? The essence of you not being exclusive with him, it's already in the air. So you don't have to explicitly say that straight up, like, oh, this man and this date and that date and this man with that man. You want to keep him focused on what would life be if you were my man? What would life be if I were exclusive with you? What are we building together? What are we creating together? How is our connection? Where is it going to take us? Where can it take us? What are we going to experience together? How are you going to show up for me masculine? How are you going to enjoy my femininity? How are you going to help protect my femininity? How are you going to help comfort me? And how are you going to help create more comfort in my life? You always want to direct the energy back on what it is that you two share, what it is that you two have together. So you're not going to sit up here and tell him, oh, this man did this for me, that man did that for me. You kind of want to play it off. Like if okay, like, for example, I may have a nice piece of jewelry and a man may be like, oh, those earrings are lovely. And I say, oh, thank you. And they're like, oh, did you get them? And I'm like, oh, they were a gift. And they're like, oh, from who? And you just smile and look down. You just, you smile and you move on. He's probably going to assume some man bought you that jewelry. And he's like, oh shit, he's going to be thinking in his mind, oh shit, like she gets nice shit from her dudes. Like, okay, like I like this woman. I know that if I really want to have a shot with her, I need to be seeing about what kind of jewelry I can get her because she already is getting jewelry. This is the thing about men. Men are so externally motivated. They're so externally motivated. They're very externally motivated, whereas we as women, we're very internally motivated. So they act a lot on outside stimuli. And that's why you see a lot of these women who people call, quote, pass arounds and stuff like that. Like, oh, everybody wants to date her. But that's a lot of time, that's how those guys in that nomadic phase, that's a lot of times how they work. They're interested in the women who have interest. Like they want who other men want. So it's good for you to roster date, and it's good for you to have it in the air that you are indeed, entertaining the company of different men because you haven't become monogamous with anybody. You haven't settled down. You're still weighing out all of your options as a woman who is dating up, a woman who is having wonderful, luxurious dating experiences. But you don't have to explicitly say that because that will alienate you from your man 9 times out of 10. When you say, oh, this man did this for me, that man did that for me. And likewise, when you complain about what men have done wrong to you. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way. And it's something that I learned a little bit late in the game. Like I've just realized this. This is a little bit off topic, but I think it's very relevant. Okay, so as women, we bond over tragedy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't think of a better way to phrase that. But we definitely bond over hardship and, oh sister, I've overcome this and I've overcome that, and we kind of bond over that. And if a woman has had a difficult life, if she's been through the ringer, we see her as a very resilient and strong woman. We see her as a woman who's overcome a lot, and we tend to respect her more if she has overcome a lot and she presents herself to us to be a very put together woman. We see that as a benefit. This is something that I didn't know, that I had to learn the hard way. When you're sitting up here and you're talking to a new man and you're telling him, oh, my baby daddy did this to me, my baby daddy cheated on me, such and such did that, the last man borrowed money from me, he never paid it back, this man stood me up, and you're just kind of going through that. What's going through his head is, oh, this was not a good catch. That's what he's not going to say that if he's a sweet guy. He's not going to say that, but that's what he's thinking. That's what he's thinking. And even down to fathers, like I don't even talk to my dates about my dad. And I know this sounds incredibly cruel, like that men think like this, but if you tell a man that your dad abandoned you, he is thinking, I think this is just a primal sort of response. He thinks like not even her dad wants her. I know that sounds very harsh and I know that sounds very cruel, but it's very true. A lot of men's mind work like that. They do not think the way we think. Because if you're a girl, if you meet a new woman and she sits up here and she tells you, oh, my dad abandoned me, you think, oh my God, baby, give me a hug. You want to comfort that woman. Or you want to sit up here and you want to provide emotional support to her. Men are not like that. Men think in their head, like I said, they're very externally motivated, and men a lot of time take cues on how to treat you based on how other men treat you. So the very last thing that you would want to sit up here and do is tell a man all the men who have abused you, all the men who have abandoned you, including your father. I don't talk about my dad anymore. Not to men, not to new men, because I want to give him a chance to really fall in love with me. I want to give him a chance to get to know me, because I know I'm over that. I know that I'm strong, and I know that I have a love and respect for men, but I feel like if he doesn't understand the level of work and dedication that you have put into developing yourself, and you sit up here and tell him about all this heartache and all this strife and all the abandonment, he may be thinking, okay, she's a ticking time bomb. She can explode at any time. She probably hates men. She's being sweet to me now, but based on her past, I don't think this is going to be a good investment for me. Because that's how men look at you. I know that may be another tough pill to swallow, but they do look at it as an investment. Like, do I want to spend my money on her? Does it make sense? Is this going to be a good investment of my money? And for us, we think about, is this going to be a good investment of my time? But since the man is the one who has to spend money on the courtship process, he's thinking in his head, is this going to be a good investment of my money? So the last thing that you want to do is sit up here and talk to him about all this negativity. You don't have to show them that. I remember once I was working with this woman and I was giving her some remedies as to what to do about a particular situation. And it required some herbal remedies and things of that nature. And she's like, well, I want to include my man in this, and I want to include my man in that. And I don't want him to feel left out. I don't want him to feel, um, I don't want him to feel out of sorts of what I'm doing. And I told her, I said, listen, your man does not care about this. He wants to see what's going to come out on the other side. So it's also a part of being the feminine mysterious. Like, be mysterious. Like, go away and get yourself together and come to him and be fabulous. He don't need to know how you got there. He don't need to know how you put your lashes on, and he don't need to know how you contoured your face, and he don't need to know what type of tea you drank to be smelling as great as you do. He don't need to know all that, and that's not important. He doesn't, like, you're sitting up here, you're like, you as a woman would feel excluded if there was something and there wasn't going on, and you think that you project that onto him, and you think that he thinks the way you do, but he doesn't care. At the end of the day, show up being fabulous, be feminine, be graceful, be respectful, be polite, be delightful, be charming, be witty, keep him on his toes, keep him interested, be a good listener, be fabulous, be wonderful. Those are the things he cares about, I promise you. So it really helps if you can think about how you're going to talk to your man in terms of what type of experience he wants to have. Think about what type of day that he has had, and you're going to think about, what is it that puts him at ease? What is it that makes him relax? What is it that bring things to the table? I would say this, as far as like just venting and stuff like that, because I used to do that a lot with guys, and that's not smart, because a lot of times it causes drama in the relationship, because they try to help us in a way that makes sense for them, and a lot of times it doesn't make sense for us. So you might be just going through an emotional situation and you're just venting, and he's like, well, do this or do that, and it seems very mechanical, and it seems like he's not listening, and it seems like he's not helping you, when in reality his mind just works very different. So now that I've become a lot wiser, I really only come to my man for situations that I feel like he can help me with. Like, usually it's like, oh babe, I need this, like, send me money. Because he can do that, or something like that, like, or babe, oh, this is going on or that's going on. But if it's just an ongoing situation that I really haven't figured out, or if it's just something I want to vent to, I don't talk to my man about that. Because, especially in the beginning, you don't want to cut your honeymoon phase short. You want to actually give yourself as much time to revel in the honeymoon phase as possible. So the more your life is in order, and the more that you know how to meet your own emotional needs, you will not outsource that to your man. You will not outsource that to your man. And also, when you have a rich network of girlfriends and friends and therapists and things like that, you're going to have plenty of people to talk to. So you don't have to rely on a very new man coming into your life who doesn't know you from Eve. You don't have to rely on him for that emotional support, because for the most part, you are providing your own emotional support to yourself, and you have a strong network of quality women who would be happy to listen to you vent. They would be happy to listen to you. They would be happy to provide you emotional support in the way that you need it. And you won't overly rely on your new man to do that, because if he doesn't respond the way you think he should respond, you kind of set yourself up for possible disappointment, possible irritation with him, that he's not providing that. And then on a side note, I could say that once I learned through doing inner child work, and doing journaling and doing more self-reflective things, being more in tune with my emotions, once I learned how to do that, I did find myself becoming a lot less desperate in the dating realm. Like, I don't look at each date as, oh, this could be the one. Oh, he could be the one. Oh, he could be the one. I don't think like that. I'm very much so in the moment. And I enjoy the process. Like I said earlier, I enjoy the cat and mouse. I enjoy speaking to a man a certain way and getting a certain response that's favorable to me. I enjoy that process. I enjoy the challenge of talking to a man and getting what I want. I enjoy it. I do. I think there's a lot of fun to it. It's not just about the destination, it's about the journey. It's about the back and forth, the back and forth of the masculine and the feminine. And I have fun because like I said, I keep getting better year after year, and interaction after interaction, I find myself getting better at it. You know, I've learned so much over the years. Now, there are going to be certain um, men on YouTube who are going to say that if you're past the age of 22, you're washed up, nobody wants you, you've hit your wall, you're totally like you should just die, pretty much. You're going to die alone, nobody wants you. But I haven't found that to be true when it comes to a lot of high net worth guys. They crave women in their 30s. They really do because we know how to talk to them. I know it sounds crazy, but it's so true. We know how to talk to them, and we have a lot more what is the word? Grace, you know, and they actually have something to talk to us about. What is a 45-year-old net executive going to talk to a 22-year-old about other than like sex? Which some, I mean, they will do that, but most high net worth guys, sex is not enough. They want more. They want to be entertained. They want a woman to challenge their mind. They want to feel valued. They want to feel seen. They want to feel in charge. They want to feel like men. And, you know, a lot of times these younger girls don't have that finesse. They don't have that. They just don't have enough life wisdom. And I can speak for someone who used to date in my 20s, and I have always been a diplomatic woman. I learned diplomacy from a very young age because of the industry that I was working in. I had to learn diplomacy, and I had to learn to be very tactful because I was working with dignitaries. I was working with the board of directors, and so I'm dealing with like people in Silicon Valley. I'm dealing with people in New York. I'm dealing with heads of hedge funds. So I kind of had to learn diplomacy, tact, grace very quickly in my very early 20s. But as far as that masculine situation of talking to men, the masculine feminine, that took a while. That was not something that was, you know, that just came natural to me. Now, as I've gotten into flow, I do find that things sort of come natural to me, but it still has taken cultivation over time. And sometimes, you know, women had taught me things along the way, but I wasn't quite wise enough to implement it in my life in a cohesive way, which I had explained in other lives. So I think what I'll start doing is I'll start getting some of these questions, and I'll start getting the screenshots of some of the ladies and how you ladies respond to men. And it's a lot of times it's counterproductive because you are not going to get what you want. Positive, I don't know what it is about me, but I have a way of saying most anything in a positive way. And I have found that to be incredibly helpful for my life. And I've found it to be incredibly helpful when talking with men. So if there's something that a man does and you're not pleased with it, or if you feel like it's not enough, it's better that you tell him, babe, I would prefer this type of flower, or babe, I would prefer this kind of restaurant, or babe, I would prefer this. So what that does a lot of times is it gives him an opportunity to course correct and to try to, if it's within his means and if it's within his desires, he will give you what you want. He wants to please you. And because the male ego is very fragile, when he puts himself out there and he does something and you're not pleased with it, and you're like, I don't like that. Why would you ever tell me that restaurant? I don't eat at places like that. So that's super negative. So in his mind and in his ego just took a hit because he offered something to you and you just told him it was unacceptable. When instead of you going in on what he tried to do for you, you could just say, babe, how about this place instead? and try to direct him towards what it is that you want to do. Now, the higher quality your man is and how he treats you, if he's respectful, if he's generous, if he is a good provider, those kinds of things, that is going to warrant the level of adoration and attention that you give to him. I believe that all people deserve a certain base level of respect. And I talk to crackheads with respect. I talk to winos with respect. I talk to people who park my car with respect. I talk to sex workers with respect. I am not, I'm just the type of woman that you don't know who anybody is. You don't know if someone who's parking your car could be a millionaire, or you don't know if the person behind the counter at a hotel, if he owns that hotel. So you don't want to come to that hotel and start talking to the worker crazy, well, this and that, and cursing them out. I promise you, I have gotten so many wonderful things in my life by being sweet and polite. Just from being sweet and polite, even when I'm upset, even when my order is wrong, even when something didn't go my way, I have gotten further in my life by being sweet and polite than by cussing people out and going off and all this and that. So you don't know who you're talking to. So I speak to everybody with respect. So everybody deserves that base level of respect. But when you have a man who is providing for you, he is taking you out, he is investing energy and time and money into you, he is showing up with masculine energy, then that's when we get to the next level. That's when we get to the adoration. That's when we get to the praise. That's when we get to the, okay, I'm about to really stroke your ego. I don't stroke every man's ego. I give every man respect, but I'm not about to sit up here and stroke your ego because I'm not free entertainment. So if you're not investing in me, I'm not going to invest in building up your ego. If you're investing in me, then I think it's my duty to invest into building up your ego. So you'll have to find that sweet spot to where you're doing enough that makes sense for the type of connection that you have with any particular man. But the positivity, speaking positively, gently, femininely directing the man to what it is that you want and desire, um, being polite and kind, being witty, being, selective, be a bit of a fantasy, be a refuge to him. So this is not the time to talk about all the horrible things that are going on at work. Oh, you're this, you're that. And you're just like, oh, you don't want him to think, oh, she's calling, I don't want to answer the phone because it's going to be some kind of drama. Or, oh, being with her is going to be a drag. You want him thinking like, oh my God, like she's calling my phone. I get to hear her voice. She's so sweet. I want to take a break from my life and I want to just like be in her world. I want us to just escape to a fantasy together. Especially in the beginning is very important because you want him to associate being with you, spending money on you, spending time on you with pleasure, with joy, with contentment, with excitement, with fun. You want to be associated with all those positive qualities. So that's what I have to say about the speaking. And then on the side note, the more you get your life in order, the more you get everything in order in your life on the side, your emotional well-being, your stability, your support network, your friendships, all of that, the more you get that in order, you are able to show up and be fun and be pleasurable and to speak nicely. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I've just been sitting here folding laundry and I figured I would go live to chat with you all. I look forward to reading your comments down below. Peace.